Somewhere in your feed right now, someone is telling you to eat like a caveman. Grass-fed steak, bacon for breakfast. If it wouldn't survive in the wild, don't eat it. The entire paleo diet is built on one image, a shirtless guy tearing into a mammoth leg by firelight. Here's the problem: that guy probably didn't exist, and the science that just proved it is only a few months old. Scientists went back to one of the oldest human ancestors we've ever found, walking around Africa over 3 million years ago. And instead of guessing from stone tools or scratched up teeth like every study before it, they measured the actual chemistry locked inside fossilized tooth enamel. Nitrogen builds up differently in your body depending on whether you're eating meat or plants, and it stays locked in your teeth for millions of years, waiting for someone to finally check. Picture the actual scene instead of the movie version. Not a hunter dragging home a kill. Someone crouched at the base of a tree, pulling roots out of the dirt with their hands, cracking open nuts between two rocks, picking through leaves for the ones that wouldn't make them sick. Less action hero, more world's most patient forager. The result was not what anyone expected. Barely any meat at all. This supposed original caveman was, chemically speaking, basically a very hairy vegetarian. And that's just the first crack in the story. It gets worse for the bacon crowd from here. There's a second kind of proof, and it's honestly disgusting when you think about it, which is exactly why it works so well. Ancient teeth build up hardened plaque, just like yours do, and that plaque doesn't just vanish over the centuries. It fossilizes. Trapped inside it, microscopic starch grains, plant fibers, tiny fragments of whatever someone chewed decades before they died, perfectly preserved in their own dental tartar. Scientists have been cracking that tartar open like a time capsule, and it keeps telling the same story: a diet stuffed with grains, roots, and starches, sitting right there in fossilized plaque that's been waiting quietly for someone to finally scrape it clean. At a site in Israel, sitting quietly for 780,000 years, researchers found stone tools coated in leftover starch, not from one plant, but from acorns, wild legumes, even water lilies pulled straight out of a lake. 20 separate layers of settlement, one on top of the next, each one showing the same thing: people who knew exactly which plant grew where, and how to process it. That's not surviving on whatever's lying around. That's someone running an entire system, at a time we're told humans could barely sharpen a rock. Go further west, into North Africa, and the pattern doesn't break. It gets more specific: cave dwellers who lived off acorns, pine nuts, and wild lentils, eating something that looks less like hunter and more like an actual balanced diet, thousands of years before anyone planted the first crop on purpose. But the number that actually broke the paleo myth completely came from somewhere you'd least expect it. Skip forward to South America. Thousands of years later, bones from ancient hunter-gatherers, tested the same way, and their diet turns out to be roughly 80% plants. 80 for people living somewhere that should have meant hunting big game every day just to survive. So if meat wasn't the star of the show, how did we end up with an entire diet, and an entire industry, named after a myth? Here's the part nobody selling you almond flour wants to explain. It's not that scientists were lying. It's that meat leaves evidence, and plants don't. A mammoth bone can survive in the ground for 1 million years. A handful of crushed acorns turns to dust in a season. For most of the history of archaeology, what did they eat really meant what didn't rot before we got here. And that question was always going to be answered with bones. It's the same reason people assume medieval peasants mostly ate meat, when in reality most of what they grew and ate was bread, grain, and vegetables. The stuff that simply doesn't survive centuries in the dirt the way a dinner plate does. Ancient humans have been quietly getting the same treatment for over a century, and it took until fossilized tooth enamel and fossilized plaque could talk for anyone to notice. And here's the part that actually matters for your own body, not just the history books. Somewhere in that plant-heavy diet, something huge was happening. Roots and starches, once you cook them, turn into fast, easy fuel, and that fuel is exactly what an expensive, oversized brain needs to keep running. You don't need a mammoth steak to grow the smartest organ on the planet. You need something you can dig up, cook over a fire, and eat every single day without needing a lucky hunt first. Reliable beats impressive, every time evolution's had a say in it. Here's the part that should actually bother you if you've ever paid extra for something labeled Paleo-Approved. Your body is still running on whichever diet actually shaped it, whether or not that matches the marketing. And the evidence increasingly says the diet was mostly plants, with meat as an occasional, hard-won bonus round, not the main event, and definitely not something you got to eat whenever you felt like it. None of this means your ancestors never ate meat. They clearly did, whenever they got the chance. and probably fought each other for the good parts when they did, but clearly ate it sometimes and built an entire identity, cookbook, and gymbro personality around it are two very different claims, and only one of them is currently being sold to you as a lifestyle. So picture that shirtless guy from the beginning, tearing into his mammoth leg by firelight. Now picture the guy sitting next to him, who nobody ever draws, quietly eating a bowl of roots, nuts, and wild greens, who actually made it through winter. History remembers the mammoth guy. Your body remembers the other one.